We have been talking during these 4 discussions, dialogues, about many things that are which are concerned with our daily human living. The problems of fear, pleasure, and the great burden of sorrow of human beings. We talked about, went into over together, time, the nature of time, the nature of love, and death. I think this morning we ought to talk over together something that's of fundamental importance, which every human being should be involved in, because it concerns our life, our daily activity, how we waste our days and years, and what is it all about, and what is it all for. We're born and we die. And during those years of pain, joy, and pleasure and sorrow, the everlasting struggle and effort, what is it all about? What is it all for? I think this is a very important question one should ask oneself. It's very easy to reply a rational explanation, or a neurotic one, or a very intellectual, emotional, romantic explanation. But if you put aside all those, naturally, and obviously being rather superficial, however intellectual it may be, I think this is a very important question to ask, and to find an answer for oneself, not dependent on some priest, on some guru, on some philosophical concept or formula, which do not answer the real question. And so, it seems to me, it's very important to go into this question. What does it all mean, our existence? Has it any meaning at all as we live it? Going to the office or the factory for the next 40 years or 50 years? Trying to climb the ladder of success, accumulate money, pleasure, experience, knowledge, and so at the end die. Knowledge has not changed man radically, deeply. We are more or less what we have been for a million years and more. Struggle, conflict, pain, pleasure, and the everlasting battle of existence. What is the meaning, the depth of our life? One sees, one observes that there must be unity of mankind, not divisions, the complete, total unity of mankind. And politics and politicians are not going to solve that problem, ever. On the contrary, they will maintain the division. It's very profitable. So when you observe all this, as a human being living in chaos, in a world that is almost gone mad, the armaments, the selling of them for profit, killing people in the name of ideas and countries, for God and all the rest of it. Observing, seeing all this all over the world, what is a human being to do and what for? So I think it becomes very important to find out, to discover for oneself, if one is at all serious, and one must be serious in life, otherwise one does not really live at all. It's only the very, very serious man, which doesn't mean he has no laughter, no smile, but that seriousness which demands a total commitment to the whole issue of life. One inevitably demands or asks, if one is again serious, what does life mean? What is it all about? If we are to inquire into this very deeply, there must be great doubt. Doubt, skepticism is essential, because that brings certain quality of freedom of mind through negation of everything that man has put together. His religions, his rituals, his dogmas, his beliefs, his faith, or all the movement of thought. And thought has not solved the problems. Thought has not been able to delve deeply into itself and psychologically, inwardly, in the very psychological structure of human mind, there is no freedom. It is conditioned. It is bound by belief, by so-called ideas, by faith. So when one doubts all that, sets all that aside, actually, not theoretically, factually, accurately, meticulously, puts aside all that, then what have you left? Many people have gone that far, total negation, and that gives you a certain quality of freedom. Total negation of everything that thought has constructed, projected, divided, religiously, economically, socially. And when you negate all that, because they have not answered, they have not solved any of our human deep problems like sorrow, fear, and death. And when you realize the nature of thought and go beyond, negate it, then what is there? And to find out what is there, we must begin with freedom. Because freedom is the first and last step. So if one is willing to go so far, then we can begin to find out what is the meaning of all this existence. We are exploring together. We are sharing our explorations together and find out for ourselves together if there is any meaning to life at all, any depth to life at all, or merely a passing event in a long series of historical process. So, to explore in any field, there must be freedom. Freedom to examine, so that in that very examination there is no distortion. When there is distortion, there is a motive behind that distortion. A motive to find an answer, a motive which you would like to have or which you think will solve our problems, a motive which may be based on past experience, past knowledge, and all knowledge is the past. And if there is any motive, there must be distortion. So can our mind, which is our common mind, because we have the same content in our consciousness. Because all human beings, whether they live in the Far East, Middle East, or Far West, go through this process of fear, agony, torture, anxiety, fear, and endless conflict, inwardly and outwardly. That's the common consciousness of mankind. So when you examine your own consciousness, you are looking into the consciousness of man. And therefore it's not a personal, individualistic examination. On the contrary, you are looking into the consciousness of the world, which is you, which is a fact when you go into it very deeply. So a mind that is free, which is a tremendous demand, which demands that you as a human being are committed totally to the transformation of the content of consciousness. Because the content make the consciousness. And we are concerned with the transformation, with the total psychological revolution of this consciousness. And to explore it, you need great energy. And that energy comes into being when there is no dissipation of energy. One dissipates through trying to overcome what is, to deny what is, to escape from what is, or analyze what is. Because the analyzer, as we said during all these many talks for many years, the analyzer is the analyzed. Analyzer is not different from that which he analyzes. When you are envious or angry or greedy, whatever it is, when you analyze the process of greed, the analyzer is himself greed. That which he analyzes is not separate from him. And this is a fundamental reality. So, we are asking, what is the meaning and the significance of life? If there is any at all. If we say there is, you've already committed yourself to something. Therefore you cannot examine. You've already started with distortion. Or if you say there is nothing, no meaning to life, that also is another form of distortion. So one must be completely free of both the positive and the negative assertions. So, as we said, this is part of meditation. This is the real beginning of meditation. The gurus that come over to this country from India, they have brought to this world great many meanings. There is the transcendental meditation, and I wish they hadn't used that lovely word, which is the repetition of certain words. And they are really, in Sanskrit, there are very, very few mantras. And the repetition of those words, given at a certain price on the market, give you, if you repeat every morning for 20 minutes in the afternoon, 20 minutes and another 20 minutes in the evening, bring you certain quality of quietness, constant repetition. You can just as well repeat Ave Maria or Coca-Cola or any other mechanical repetition. It will certainly give you a certain quality of quietness. But this is mechanistic quietness, because you have reduced the brain to constantly repeat. If you have tried it, even for 2 minutes, how mechanically it becomes quiet. But that's no more transcendental than anything else. And thereby, we think we'll experience something that's beyond the material process of thought. So, we are bored or tired or fed up with all the experiences we have of life, and we hope to capture some experience which is not the product of thought, and to go through with anything and end it, not remember it and carry it on. To recognize an experience, you must have already known it. Otherwise, it's not new experience. So a mind that demands experience, please listen to this, more other than the mere physical, psychological, everyday experience, that demands something far greater and above all this. What it will experience is its own projection, and therefore it is still mechanistic, still materialistic, which is the product of thought. So, when you do not demand any experience, when there is no distortion and therefore no illusion, then only the mind, the whole structure of consciousness, being free, is capable of looking at itself without any distortion, as you see in a clear mirror your face. The mirror reflects exactly what your face is. There is no distortion unless the mirror is distorted. Distortion takes place when there is effort. Effort implies me and something I am going to achieve. Division between me and that. Wherever there is division, there must be conflict. And so, meditation comes only when there is the complete ending of conflict. Therefore, every other form of meditation, where there is effort, practice, control has no meaning. We are examining together, sharing together. Therefore, it's very important not to accept a thing that's being said, but examining it. There is no division in oneself. There is not the controller and the controlled, different from the controller. The experiencer is the experience. They are not two different entities or movements. The thinker is the thought. There is no thinking if there is no thought. So when one realizes this profoundly as a truth, as a law, then all effort comes to an end. So meditation can only come into being when there is no effort of any kind. And it is necessary to meditate to find out if there is any meaning to life at all, or if there is a meaning. And if there is to be meditation, there must be no psychological fear whatsoever. And so, when you have really deeply established this, a way of life, which in itself is not an end. That's only the beginning of it. Then we can proceed to find out whether the mind, which is the totality, which is the entire consciousness, is quiet. Because it's only when the mind is quiet, still, you can hear properly. We never hear anything completely. We never listen to anything totally. While we are listening, there's already a distortion taking place. What you hear, either you agree or disagree, or you compare what you hear to what you already know, or your mind is chattering. So it's never actually listening because it's already crowded. It is necessary for the mind to be quiet, to listen to any conversation, to listen to any person, to a bird, to the wind. The mind must be quiet to find out, to investigate, to look, to observe if life has any meaning at all, or if there is something most profound. That is, your mind, after laying down the foundation of behavior, conduct, order in this confusion of existence. So naturally, the mind becomes quiet. Now, in that quietness, is there an observer who says, I am quiet? You understand my question? When you are happy, when you're quietly happy, when you say, am I happy? Then that happiness is gone. The moment you are conscious of something which gives you happiness, that happiness disappears. So when you say, am I silent? Is my mind silent? It is no longer silent. There are different kinds of silence. The silence between two words. The silence between two notes of piano. The silence between two noises. The silence between two thoughts, an interval. The silence after a long battle with oneself, the weariness. The silence between two wars, which we call peace. All those are silences which are the product of noise, between two noises, between two thoughts, between two notes, between two wranglings. That is not silence. There is silence which is not produced or cultivated, so that there is no me to observe that silence. There's only silence, quietness. Then we can begin, we can ask that question in that silence. If there is any meaning or not at all. You really don't ask that question in that silence, but we have started with that question. We have not answered that question. We must find an answer to that question. We have prepared the field or the mind that is capable now of finding out. We put a question which is, has life any meaning? We have said various religions have offered a substitute, a symbol, a myth is not actual. It's a romantic thing. When we have started with that question, we must find out who is going to answer that question. Am I going to answer it? Or in that very silence, the answer is, you understand my question? That is, when there is no distortion, and distortion exists only when there is motive. Distortion exists when there is effort. Distortion exists when there is demand for experience. Distortion exists when there is division between the observer and the observed, the thinker and the thought, and so on. All those are distorting factors. When there is no distortion, and therefore no wastage of energy, now in that silence there is this energy which has been dissipated. But now that dissipation has ceased, because the word is not the thing. The description is not the described. And as most minds are caught in grooves, deep or shallow, and when one stays in a groove, belief, dogmas, religions, whatever the groove be, however beautiful, however pleasant, however comforting, then that mind becomes mechanical, repetitive. So it loses its depth, its beauty. So we are asking, is this silence mechanistic, a product of thought which says there must be something beyond me, and therefore to find that out I must be silent, that I must control myself, I must subjugate everything to find out, which is still the movement of thought, right? So we must find out the difference between concentration, awareness, and attention. Concentration implies to focus one's energy in a particular direction, excluding all other directions. Therefore, you are excluding all other things. You are building a wall, resistance. Then there is awareness, which is fairly simple if you don't give a lot of complications to it. To be aware of the marquee, its shape, the people sitting around you, the color of their dress, to be aware of all this. But that awareness then begins to choose that color better than the other color, to choose what it would like, what it would not like. So, to be aware without choice, you understand? Just to observe the total thing without any choice. And there is attention. Attention implies there is no center from which you are attending. The center is me or you, and if you are aware from that center, that attention is limited. But there is an attention which has no center. The center exists when there is choice, in awareness. Are you following all this? Where there is choice, there is me, and therefore it is still limited. Now we are talking about attention in which there is no center at all, so that the brain is now, without choice, completely attentive. Completely. With your nerves, with everything, it's completely attentive, and therefore no center. There is no me who says, I am attentive. In that attention, there is silence. Silence which contains this energy, which is no longer dissipated. Then, that question is still unanswered. Is there a meaning to life, or none at all? Which is, to put it differently, is there anything sacred in life? Sacred in the sense, holy. The word whole means health, sanity, and a quality of sacredness. Is the mind, your mind, healthy? That is, both your body and your mind completely healthy, so that there is no neurotic movement. This requires tremendous inquiry, you understand, into oneself, so that there is no false note in it, never going beyond actually what is. There is something beyond all this travail, all this misery. If you are capable, if you give your whole energy, time, capacity to this. Otherwise one leads a very shallow, meaningless life, and the inevitable death coming after. So the whole of this is meditation, from the beginning to the end. The beginning is to understand oneself, not according to any philosopher, any psychologist, or any analyst, but for yourself. Yourself is the mankind, the rest of the world. And then you have to see what your consciousness is. Your consciousness is its content. The misery, the confusion, the anxiety, the fears, the attachments, the property, the wife, follow. All that is your consciousness, which is the consciousness of every human being. Then effort. So can one live a life, in daily life, without a single effort? It is possible to live without a single effort. That comes only when you understand contradictions in yourself. Observe the contradiction in oneself. Not try to change it, not try to alter the contradiction, just to observe. The very observation is its own ending of the contradiction. When there is a total observation in which is total attention, then any contradiction in yourself comes to an end. You can test it out actually every day for yourself. So one can live a life in which there is no conflict. Then only the real deeper meditation begins. And then you have that energy of silence, in which there is no illusion. And that is, as we said at the beginning, First step is the last step, which is freedom.